state and the country took the reins. The protests and the demonstrations against segregation were ongoing without interruption from the 60s all the way through the 70s. In Louisiana, many of those anti-segregation student protesters were arrested. Of those came 3 game-changing cases from the United States Supreme Court. The first case comes straight out of Baton Rouge. It involves Southern students, and it is captioned Garner versus Louisiana. That is a 1961 case, and I'm honored to acknowledge Mr. John Garner's only heir. Ms. Joan Garner, would you please rise? That was a Southern University law student that led that litigation before the United States Supreme Court. And then it would only be 2 years later that students out of New Orleans from SUNO and CORE would organize and challenge these segregated establishments, and they would too find themselves before the United States Supreme Court in Lombard versus Louisiana. And then in 1965, here we go again, Baton Rouge protesters before the Supreme Court in Cox versus Louisiana. But it's interesting that in each of these cases, the students prevailed. The state of Louisiana was wrong in every one of these cases before the Supreme Court, and there were declarations that their First Amendment rights were violated. So this taught a valuable lesson to state officials. They understood that arresting Black students in Louisiana would not silence a movement. And so in 1968, we get the rise of the Black Power movement. That pacifist approach to social change has now yielded. It has yielded now to a more unapologetic approach for demands. Agitation among Southern University students continues into the 70s, but the objective now shifts. It is no longer about segregation, it is about curriculum changes. And on that point, the Students United said, and I quote, "SU's major function has been to program Black students to later provide the imperialists and capitalists with a reservoir of lackeys to exploit Black and poor people." The Students United also go on to say that Southern must use its resources to address the needs of the Black community. And then the Students United organization argued that Southern must remove inept administrators. Simultaneously, there is another story unfolding, but these students have no idea that in 1971, the nation has just ratified the 26th Amendment. And that amendment lowers the voting age to 18. And that is obviously a concern when we're protesting and leading movements because politicians feel uneasy that this could influence these young new voters. These students had no idea that there were racial tensions unfolding inside of Angola in 1972. Right outside of Southern, there is a collision between Black Muslims and Baton Rouge police. There were few Blacks in power in Baton Rouge at this hour in 1972. And then on the national level, there is J. Edgar Hoover, a man that many describe as a political pervert, who was at the helm of the FBI. He abused power through COINTELPRO, the secret counterintelligence program that was used to silence Black activists all over the nation. And then these students had no idea that Louisiana formed this sovereignty commission in the 60s, and it was in high gear by the 70s. And what was the purpose of that commission? To use state dollars to discreetly facilitate any effort to discontinue segregation. And one of its tactics was to silence Louisiana's activists. And so the plot thickens here. We add to the mix of all of this a brand new governor